Can we now move to agenda item number 4, which is to take evidence on the draft antisocial behaviour notices, houses used for holiday purposes, Scotland Order 2011. I would extend my welcome to the witnesses here with us this morning. Alex Neil, Minister for Housing and Communities, welcome. He's accompanied by Peter Reid, Senior Policy Officer, Housing Markets and Supply, Scottish Government. Colin Brown, Senior Principal Legal Officer of the Scottish Government. Do you wish to make some opening remarks, Minister?
Yes, please, Convener, if I can. Can I thank you very much indeed for this opportunity to speak to the committee about the antisocial behaviour notices, houses used for holiday purposes, Scotland Order 2011. Through the work of Mr Stanley Player in lodging his public petition and others, the Government has been made well aware of concerns about persistent antisocial behaviour associated with party flats let out for events such as stag parties and hen nights or hen parties. Therefore, we welcome the suggestion from Sarah Boyack, Shirley-Ann Somerville and others, and the City of Edinburgh Council to clarify and improve the application of antisocial behaviour notices in relation to short-term lets, thereby allowing local authorities to take action against landlords of holiday flats with a series of different antisocial tenants. Officials from the Scottish Government and the City of Edinburgh Council have worked together to improve the legislation so that it can better meet the needs of our communities. This order creates an additional set of criteria under which a local authority can issue an antisocial behaviour notice. There must have been at least 2 occasions in which the property was used for holiday purposes, and during at least 2 of these occasions, antisocial behaviour has been engaged in by a user or visitor. The antisocial behaviour notice can then set out action that the landlord must take to prevent future antisocial behaviour. These actions could include 1. Limits on the number of people who can be in the property at any one time, 2. Requiring some form of on-site supervision, or at least a person to whom complaints can be directed and who is able to effectively address them, and 3. Requiring improvements to the security of the premises. If the landlord fails to comply with the antisocial behaviour notice, then various remedies are available to the local authority. 1. It may apply to a sheriff for an order so that no rent is payable. 2. It may apply to a sheriff for a management control order for the premises. 3. It may take such steps as it considers necessary to deal with antisocial behaviour, with the landlord being liable for any expenses incurred. And 4. Finally, failure to comply is an offence, with a fine up to level 5 on the current scale, currently £5,000. Although we expect that this will allow the local authority to tackle persistent antisocial behaviour from party flats, we do not expect it to impose a burden on the vast majority of reputable owners of tourist accommodation which are not associated with antisocial behaviour. I would welcome any questions from the committee, and I move the motion. I do that later, I think. I move the motion later.
Fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Is there any members who wish to? Alex Johnson? Jim Tolson?
Thank you, Convener. The one thing I was going to ask is, it seems a relatively trivial question, but it still interests me, and that is, what is the likely timescale in getting this series of actions carried out? The reason why I ask is it something that can actually be done in order to deal with a specific problem, or are we simply talking about accommodation that has a record of being a problem? So we can't deal with a specific case through this order.
If it's only a one-off case of antisocial behaviour, that would be dealt with under the normal antisocial behaviour laws. This is where there is a record of antisocial behaviour emanating from one or more particular flats. The problem, of course, is if the antisocial behaviour is committed by a visitor who's maybe in Edinburgh for a weekend stay, it's very difficult for the police very often to identify who's the culprit and take the necessary action to deal with them before they've left the city. And therefore, the purpose of this is, and the pattern has been, that there are a few particular flats in particular parts, particularly Edinburgh, not exclusively Edinburgh, but particularly Edinburgh, which are consistently being reported to the police and the local authority as flats where there is ongoing antisocial behaviour almost every weekend in some cases, sometimes for longer periods, But it's different people who are visiting, and very clearly these flats are let out for specific purposes of partying, and the partying gets a bit excessive.
Yes. Thank you.
Jim Tolson.
Yeah, thank you. Minister, I think this sounds like an interesting and hopefully worthwhile change in this legislation, but I'm worried about how we deal with some of the potential consequences and possibly call it quite simply excuses that you'll get from some tenants as to why there has been antisocial behaviour. I'm thinking particularly of the instance if an issue is raised with a tenant where they claim that a third party has caused the antisocial behaviour, what you or I or any other party goer might call a gatecrasher. How do we deal with situations like this where it's very vague to find out who is responsible? And is it right, therefore, that we charge the landlord in that case when they've had no control over this third party coming into their property?
Well, in a sense, this situation will be no different from the general application of antisocial behaviour legislation. The local authority and or the police always have to investigate to establish who is the culprit and then take appropriate action. Now, sometimes it's not always clear who the culprit is, and therefore it can be more difficult to take action. That's the case normally today, and no doubt there will be instances in this case where it might be difficult to pinpoint exactly who the culprits are. But the point is, if this landlord continually allows this to happen, then he becomes the culprit under this legislation. It's him that's dealt with. It's his responsibility to make sure that his flat is not consistently used for anti-social behaviour.
Okay, thank you.
Member of the committee? Can I bring in Sarah Boyack at this point, who's joined the committee? Sarah.
Thank you very much, Convener, and thank you for letting me contribute to your discussions on the statutory instrument today. I am really pleased we've got to this point. The current position means that my constituents' lives are disrupted on a regular basis. As the Minister said, it's a weekly occurrence for people who have the misfortune to live anywhere near one of these party flats. The current system does not enable any effective action to take place. It's become a football between the antisocial behaviour team, the noise team and the police, and actually none of them have the powers to actually tackle this issue properly. So I very strongly welcome this statutory instrument. The Council are clear with me that they do not have the powers to act, and in discussions with the Council and with the Minister, it seems to me that this statutory instrument potentially fills the gap in legislation, but it is proportionate. It should only kick in where there's demonstrable problems. I think the threshold of 2 incidents that have been reported is fair. Has to be reported. It's not just on people's say-so, but there are several flats in my constituency alone where this could make a real difference, in particular to residents. The landlords basically rent out their flats. They earn a huge amount of money. They've spent some money putting in lots of beds into these flats. So you can be talking 15 to 20 people who are all drunk, who are there for 3 days. And it's massively disruptive. It's not just within the flat, it's also within the vicinity. So I'm pleased at the detail in the statutory instrument here, which doesn't just talk about the flat itself, it talks about in the vicinity, because the on-street disturbance is significant, and the vandalism that's caused to people's cars, the vandalism that's caused to stairwells, makes it a very expensive problem for local residents who have to clear up the mess afterwards. I suppose the other thing I'd want to welcome is the fact that the powers that are given to the Council gives them a choice as to how to proceed. They can prevent the flat from being used, they can require supervision, and they can actually force the landlord to be liable for expenses. And I think these are provisions that will really begin to concentrate the mind of landlords, because there will be a financial consequence. At the moment, their habit is to charge very high deposits from people, and all that does is it lines their pockets even further, because the people who create problems go off, they don't get the deposits back. And if you look on the internet at the number of people really unhappy about the situation, there's a large number of people who have reported unhappiness. I can tell you, even this week, I've got several constituents with different party flat problems getting in touch with me that the problem is still ongoing. It's something that's been going on for several years now, and I really hope that if we can get this through the Parliament, it sends out a strong message to the managers of party flats that the days of irresponsible lets are over, and for constituents who've experienced distress, costly repairs and disruption to their lives on a weekly basis, that there should be some respite. I think it's proportionate, it targets the right people, and I hope that the Scottish Government will keep the statutory instrument under review. I think they've done a good job in consultation with the Council. The challenge will be in actually seeing it implemented if the committee is prepared to pass it, which I hope you do today. Thank you.
I'm sure the Minister would welcome all of those remarks. But I didn't hear a question in there, so we may have preempted the debate, but hopefully that will reduce time on the debate. If there are no further questions, we will now move to agenda item number 5, which is to consider a motion to approve the draft antisocial behaviour notices, houses used for holiday purposes, Scotland Order 2011. Can I invite the Minister, Alex Neil, Minister for Housing, to move motion S3M 7827.
Thank you, Convener. I move the motion that the Local Government and Communities Committee recommends that the antisocial behaviour notices, houses used for holiday purposes, Scotland Order 2011 be approved.
I invite members to debate the motion. Does anyone wish to say anything further? Given that no one wishes to say anything more, I presume, do you wish to make any final remarks, Minister?
Thank you.
It's our purpose to make you happy, Minister.
I know the vote.
We would now ask the members to agree the motion. Agreed. Thank you. The motion is agreed. Item